Good morning. Former Envoy Jason Greenblatt says that Biden's views on Jerusalem are inconsistent with U.S. law. A new poll here in Israel gives us an update on what elections might look like in November. A powerful explosive device was disarmed in southern Israel by Israeli police after being discovered in the entrance of a restaurant. And an all-inclusive update on the attempts to establish brand new communities in Judea and Samaria. I'm Josiah, and this is the Israel Guys Daily. Welcome to the Israel Guys Daily, where we cut through the fog of fake news to bring you the accurate headlines from Israel. Jason Greenblatt had some fascinating things to say about Joe Biden's recent visit to Israel. But first, make sure you like this video. And if you're not already subscribed to this channel, the Israel Guys, please consider subscribing. We really appreciate that. And ring that notification bell so that you never miss an Israel Guys episode. Guys, we're putting out 3 a week now, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You don't want to miss this cutting edge news and updates that are coming straight out of Israel, often on the ground. Also, we're well on our way to 100,000 subscribers, and we'd really appreciate it if you would just click that subscribe button, really help us out and show some support for this channel. Thank you. Also, July is almost ending, and for every monthly supporter that joins us here at the Israel Guys, signs up to support at $25 a month or more during the month of July, only during the month of July, receives an exclusive, actually, it's not even on our store yet, but it's a Biblical Heartland tumbler, coffee thermos, 20 ounce, absolutely incredible. So make sure and go check that out. You can go to theisraelguys.com/donate or click the link in the description below. Sign up at $25 a month. Everything we put out here at the Israel Guys is free, so we really appreciate any support that you guys are willing to give to the channel here and to what we do here in Israel. In an interview with the Root Sheva, Jason Greenblatt talked about Biden's visit to Israel, and specifically his visit to East Jerusalem. Now, he had some really interesting things to say that go in opposition to what Biden said. A lot of what he said to the Palestinian Authority, and again, we talked about that extensively last week. I told you all the details of what Biden said and what Mahmoud Abbas said in their meeting last Friday in Bethlehem. Jason Greenblatt says, let's take East Jerusalem as a question. Everybody keeps saying East Jerusalem should be the capital of a state called Palestine. That, of course, includes the Temple Mount. Where does that come from? Where it comes from, at least according to what I was briefed by my government, this is the Trump administration, it came from people saying it for so long that now it's become, this is what it is. There's no piece of paper out there that says East Jerusalem belongs to the Palestinians. No piece of paper. I've got to speak in front of the UN Security Council about this, where I was able to say that the aspiration of Palestinians for East Jerusalem as their capital is not a right. But Europe and the United Nations and others keep saying East Jerusalem belongs to the Palestinians. So he's saying this is a completely false narrative, this notion, and it's true, that the Palestinians have a right to Jerusalem or East Jerusalem as the capital of a two-state solution with Israel and Palestine. He was also very critical of Biden going to the hospital in East Jerusalem unaccompanied, because he said that no Israeli officials could accompany him to East Jerusalem. He said, quote, the fact that President Biden went to East Jerusalem, the East Jerusalem hospital, without Israelis shows to me that he believes that East Jerusalem, some portion of it or all of it, belongs to the Palestinians. It's inconsistent with U.S. law, with the Jerusalem Recognition Act. It's a violation of the law, at least in spirit. It's part of Israel, and it's a real shame that he went there without Israelis official. The only thing I would add was that it's more than a real shame. It's like a slap in the face to the Israeli officials for Biden to say, hey, I'm visiting Jerusalem. During that time, I'm going to go to a neighborhood that I don't recognize as part of your country. So none of you guys can come with me. That's basically what it is. And it's a real slap in the face to Israel and Israel's officials. All right, what is happening in the government? Obviously, Israel's headed to new elections on November 1st, and a new poll conducted by the Panel Politics for Mariv Weekend newspaper this last weekend showed that if elections were held today, the Likud Likud-led bloc, so the Likud is the largest party, but the bloc that they would be able to pull together would win just 59 seats. Excuse me. You need a 61-seat majority to form a coalition, so there'd be 2 seats shy of forming a majority. The poll gave Likud 35 seats, Yesh Atid 24 seats. This is Yesh Atid's left. Third place is the Blue and White New Hope joint list, so they joined together with 12 Knesset seats, followed by Religious Zionism with 10 seats, and then the rest of the parties get less, 8 seats, 6 seats. Smallest would be 4 seats for several of the parties. Interestingly enough, Yamina and Jewish Home Party would not pass the electoral threshold. Yamina, again, is Naftali Bennett, Ayelet Shaked's party. So they're not, as of now, what this poll is showing, they're not going to pass the electoral threshold. So divided into the right and left blocks, the people that say they will not sit with Netanyahu, it would turn out being the Likud-led bloc would receive 59 seats, and the other coalition partners that are in the coalition now will receive 54 seats. And the other seats that make up 120 are being held by the Arab joint list, who do not typically join any coalition, right or left. So that's a little bit of the update of what's happening in the government, what it's looking like now, and obviously things are going to change, especially with the changing things in Israel and different events and political events that happen. Obviously, those numbers are going to change. Could be drastically. They could go up and down in the matter of weeks. So we never know until it actually happens, but that's what it's looking like right now. There was a powerful explosive device found in southern Israel, in a southern Israel restaurant, actually. The restaurant was called Ratatouille, located in southern Israel. The device was actually located and disarmed on Thursday night, leading to a covert investigation that was embargoed until last night, actually, just Saturday night. So they're starting an investigation now. Thank God. The charge was disarmed before it had a chance to be activated. And according to the police, this is not necessarily like a terrorism. It's not terrorism affiliated, but it's connected to one of the largest criminal organizations in the South. It didn't. The article I read didn't specify, couldn't find out the specifics of which organization this was, but apparently the owner of the restaurant was somehow entangled in this. The police did say that there is a fear that if the restaurant operates as usual, the same criminal or the people working with him would come back to harm the owner of the place and could end up harming innocent civilians as well, civilian casualties for this. So the police mandated that the restaurant's going to be closed for 15 days while they're investigating this. They're investigating the owner of the restaurant for his involvement in whatever this plot is. Doesn't seem to be terrorism, but still a lot of civilians could have lost their lives with this device being planted in this restaurant, and we thank God that the police found it and were able to disarm it with no casualties and nobody being injured in this scenario. All right, guys, what you've been waiting for, probably if you've been watching any of the news coming out of Israel or watching our channel, we did an extensive video on Friday on what happened in Israel with the new settlement movement, the new pioneers going out to establish new communities in Judea and Samaria. If you have not seen that video, I recommend going to check it out, because basically it was just raw. We went out there with our camera and we said, we don't know exactly what's going to play out here. We know that this amazing settlement movement wants to establish new communities. We don't know how that's going to work, but we're here to document it and tell you the real story of what's going on. And let me tell you, it did actually end up quite differently than we were expecting. Make sure and go check that out if you've not seen it yet, with the video released on Friday here on the Israel Guys channel. So the Nachala settlement movement vowed to launch 30 more outposts, what they call outposts or settlements. The left likes to call them outposts. But they vowed to launch many more after what we saw last weekend. Overall, the reports seems that around 10,000 Israelis showed up and came out to establish these new communities across Judea and Samaria. There were 3 locations in Samaria that they attempted to establish. There were 2 in Binyamin, which is southern Samaria, or just north of Jerusalem. And then there were another 2 down in the Hebron Hills, or down next to Hebron and Gush Etzion, that were attempted to be established. The place we were at, and what you'll see from the video, unfortunately, the Israeli police ended up at the end of the night removing everybody from that location and quite a few of the other locations across Judea and Samaria. I believe one or 2 of the locations down in the south, there were still people there the next morning, so they ended up having a presence there all night, which is a very, very good thing. As of now, there's nobody, according to the Nachala, an official statement from the Nachala movement, which is the settlement movement that organized all this, that there are no people in these settlement points right now. Daniela Weiss, we actually got an interview with her on Friday's video. Check that out as well. But she told reporters during a Zoom conference on Friday that this is just the beginning. She said, yes, we have only just begun. Yesterday was the start of a new period. Years from now, this campaign will be seen as the birth of what will be 7 thriving Jewish communities. And we hope and pray that this will indeed be the case. But these pioneers, many of whom were older teenagers, young adults, set up 3 camps in Samaria, 2 in the Benjamin area and 2 in the south as well. But they all came out for one purpose, and that was to settle the land of Israel. Guys, let me tell you, it's a beautiful thing when you have Jewish people, Israelis, coming out to fulfill their God-given right and to fulfill prophecy, guys, to fulfill the biblical mandate for the Jewish people to settle the land of Israel. There's a biblical, God-given right and heritage for the Jewish people to settle the land of Israel. And anybody who says anything against that, saying it's illegal, it's against international law, there's no law that trumps the law of God and what God has mandated and given this to his people. So it's an absolutely incredible thing, amazing thing to experience firsthand. I was super blessed to be able to take part of that. An official statement from the Nachala movement on Friday said, so this is kind of like an update of where we go from here. Unfortunately, for the time being, we have been removed from the settlement points, sometimes using increased and unnecessary violence by the security force. We saw that against young people and adults, confiscating equipment and destroying equipment arbitrarily and illegally. Also saw that as well on Thursday evening. But this is the official statement. They said the joy is great and the public is just waiting to come back. We receive inquiries from families and youth who want to join to be a part of a historic course. This is after Thursday night when all this kind of went down and everybody came out, and after the police ended up evacuating and removing everybody from these points. After all this happened and people saw what happened, sometimes the police got quite rowdy and a little violent in certain instances. But even after all this, people saw it. There's a lot of families, there's a lot of youth who want to join the movement. More people are getting on board. More people are excited about settling the land of Israel. And that's an amazing thing to see. All right, just so you get a little taste of this, here's some of the news headlines from the left-wing media about this new movement to establish new communities in Judea and Samaria. This is from Wafa. It says, settlers seeking to build a settlement outpost set up tents on Palestinian-owned land east of Hebron. Short little. This is the way all these headlines go, but they take certain little phrases or they use inflammatory language such as outpost, and settlers is more of a negative connotation in the left-wing media. But Palestinian-owned land, I'm sorry, that's a lie. They were not setting up on Palestinian-owned land. Absolutely not. Every place they tried to establish a new community was state land by the Israeli government. Israeli settlers, here's another one. Israeli settlers break into Palestinian land west of Ramallah to set up a colonial outpost. Oh, man, how dare they set up a colonial outpost? Another one, settlers declare 6 new outposts clash with authorities. Sorry, that didn't happen. These guys did not clash with authorities. Many cases, and I think maybe all of the 7 cases, the authorities actually came in and used violence and force to drag people out of the place. But all these guys, and I heard it from their own lips, they said they were remaining, and I saw it take place. They were remaining committed to remaining peaceful and not to clash with the authorities and not to clash with the Israeli police. Here's another one. It says, settlers camp out in 6 locations across West Bank, planning to establish new outposts. Police, army gear up for clashes as settlers group to try to set up 3 illegal outposts. And it just goes on. All these are very, very similar, but you can see the language they use here. The police gear up for clashes. No, the police did not. I actually saw it. They brought all their riot gear to the scene, left them in the van because they knew they were dealing with Israelis, and they knew these guys were committed to remaining peaceful. So the soldiers had no reason to put on protective gear because they were not going to be harmed by the settlers, and they were not, indeed, in the end, harmed by these amazing pioneers settling the land of Israel. And as you can imagine, the political map is split on this, right and left. Inside the Knesset, some are supporting, some are blatantly against what happened. The MK Yair Golan, who is from Meretz, left-wing party, said, quote, the Messianic right is conducting an election campaign based entirely on violence, racism, and delinquency. So he's saying this movement is part of election campaign. It's based entirely on violence, racism, and delinquency. I really don't I don't really have anything to say about it, guys. It's just so far from the truth. It's such a propaganda line to use right here. I did not see any of that happen on Thursday night when we actually saw what was happening. I had the firsthand report. Religious Zionism Party politicians, this is the Religious Zionism Party, as well as some Likud, came out and showed support for the movement, including MK's Ori Struk, Itamar Ben-Gvir. We actually got an interview with Itamar Ben-Gvir. You can see it on our channel from Friday's video. Simcha Rothman, Michal Waldiger, Bezalel Smotrich, they all came out to show support for the settlement movement, this amazing attempt to establish new communities in the land of Israel. Interior Minister Ayelet Shaked, we've talked a lot about her in the recent weeks, who heads the Yamina party, also spoke out in great favor of this. She spoke out against the security forces that use force to remove a lot of these young people from these different outposts. She said, quote, again, violence against settlers. This is a tweet. The police... Again, we're experiencing violence against settlers. The police should save their energy for eradicating real crime in the country. These are wonderful youth who enlisted in the middle of summer vacation to build this country, Shaked wrote. And she added that these guys are a real inspiration, and their dedication serves as a guarantee that Zionism will overcome any challenge or crisis, internal or external. She also added that these pioneers should be strengthened and embraced. Exactly what needs to happen, guys. You can support what's going on here. You can support and declare. Just put it right in the comments below on this video. Declare your support for establishing new communities in Judea and Samaria, for new growth to happen inside the biblical heartland of Israel. Guys, the Jewish nation needs your support now more than ever, especially as world leaders are coming against this, talking about a two-state solution, talking about giving into the Palestinians and giving rights and giving land to these terrorists who are bent on the destruction of Israel. Guys, Israel needs your support. So declare it. Be bold. Don't be scared. And if you need facts, come to the Israel Guys for more facts. Guys, if you enjoyed today's show, make sure to subscribe here on YouTube. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, go ahead and follow us there and write us a 5-star review. Really appreciate it. Let us know what you think in the comments below about everything I talked about today. If you have questions, just put it right there in the comments. We love interacting with you guys there. Make sure and come back Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for more daily news from Israel. Remember, as Christian, our mission is to stand unconditionally with the land and people of Israel. I'm Josiah Hilton, and this is the Israel Guys.